so you say that the draft is a particularly deep one. We all know about the wide receiver position. Where else do you think that this will yield second, third, fourth round gems this year, Trevor?
Yeah, I think offensive tackle, offensive line in general, really deep class. Like we've got a crazy over under for total offensive linemen. I mean, we're near double digits for the first round. So I think offensive tackle, you'll have an opportunity to pick some of these guys probably early part of the second round that could eventually be really good starters for you. And that's not often the case, right? Offensive line and offensive tackle specifically is one of those positions that you either draft them very high or you don't have one, right? They never become available. They never hit free agency. When you got a good offensive tackle, they're normally sticking around and a team's not going to let them go. So the fact that we're living in a world where you could realistically look at some guys at the top of the second round and say to yourself, this guy could become a legitimate starter someday. I feel like that's a big luxury. I think the same with corner as well. We've got 5 corners that could all go in the first round, but even getting beyond some of those guys, you've got guys in round 2 and round 3 who very intriguing. You know, if you're more of a zone coverage team, if you're more of a man coverage team, there are some scheme specific players who I think maybe that versatility overall pushes them down the board a little bit, but they could fit perfectly exactly what you want to do. So wide receiver you mentioned is very deep, but I also think that that offensive tackle, offensive line in general, the center class, the interior offensive line class, I'll shout them out as well. You're going to get starters in round 3, maybe even round 4 in this class, and then the corners as well. It's just a really deep group at those premium positions.
Wow. I mean, it's pretty cool that we're getting set for this sort of thing in Detroit. So I'll ask you a question I've been asking everybody. Give me a guy or two that if you're in a draft room, you're like, we are not getting out of this draft without getting this guy. You're hell or high water. You're coming away with him. Give me 2 of them.
I'll speak to your Michigan heart here.
Okay.
Mike Sanders still has to be one of them, right? I mean, just one of the best football players in college football over the last couple of years. And I mean, converted wide receiver, so he's got really great ball skills. He ain't afraid to come up and play against bigger tight ends, against shiftier wide receivers. I don't worry about him near the line of scrimmage because I know he's fearless. Like, okay, maybe he won't erase the block or anything like that, but he's going to spill things back inside. He's going to set the edge as best as he possibly can. He is just so highly competitive, and that's somebody that, like, those are the characteristics, right? It's a draft where you always talk about, like, potential and what this guy could be and the ceiling and things like that, but sometimes it's just about drafting really good football players. And so I think Mike Sanders still has got to be the guy that I'm standing on the table for. And then I'll stick with defensive backs. Another guy that I feel like I'm just way higher on than a lot of other people is Cooper DeJean from Iowa. It's a really good cornerback class, but people talk about Quinyon and he's fantastic, and Terrion Arnold, it's the same thing. But man, if we go back to 2022's tape, Cooper DeJean was locked down, man. I get he hasn't played a ton of man coverage, but come on, the ball skills are there for him. You look at this guy back in his high school athletic days, he is an incredibly decorated all-around athlete. He brings that to the football field, the instincts, the ball skills, the shutdown ability, and he's one of the best tacklers in the draft. Those are 2 guys at the cornerback position, specifically, that I'm pounding the table for. That I say, if we have a chance to draft this player and this is a need for us and this fits, this is the guy that we want. He increases the talent level, the identity, the culture, the toughness, exactly what you'd want to be as a Super Bowl winning franchise.
All right, those are good answers. You went Big Ten championship game, one from Michigan, one from Iowa. But I can't let you go without giving me an offensive one. Give me an offensive one. Is it a receiver? Is it a running back? Give me somebody that you're like offensive player, 3rd, 4th round, whatever. It doesn't have to be, or you're just not getting out of the draft without that guy.
Okay, I'll give you 2 that I think are pretty unique.
All right, Trevor, I knew you could. Go for it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, one of them, I know he's a little bit smaller. I know he didn't test as well as we thought he was going to. Oregon running back Bucky Irving will make you miss in a phone booth, baby. I mean, this dude is awesome. We have 2 metrics at PFF that we love to lean on when it comes to separating running backs from the offensive line in front of them, right? Because it's a very difficult thing to do. You talk about stats and production and touchdowns and rushing yards, and you go, yeah, okay, well, it was just the offensive line in front of them. 2 metrics that we have that I like that helps us do that. It's not, the gospel, but forced missed tackles per attempt, which means, okay, how often are you making somebody miss in space? That's individual talent. And then yards after contact per attempt. Okay. That's all right. The offensive line maybe didn't do as good of a job as they could have. You're taking on contact, whether it's at the line of scrimmage, whether it's 2 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards down the field, but you are still getting more yards after that. Bucky Irving, incredibly high percentage in both of those categories. So he's somebody who he'll get drafted a little bit later because of the measurables, because of the lack of great athletic testing. But I love those two things about him. I think he's fantastic. And then the other one, look, Johnny Wilson, the wide receiver from Florida State, they don't move like him, man. They don't. 6'6", 231 pounds. But people talk about, he's got to be a converted tight end. If you're saying he's got to be a converted tight end, I don't think you're watching the right games. I really don't, because he'll show you the quick footwork off of the releases. He'll give you the wiggle in the route. He'll set guys up with some shoulder shimmies. He'll chop his feet, and he'll break and create separation for a 6'6", 230-pound wide receiver. Now, got to catch the ball with more regularity. I wish he was a little bit stronger at the catch point, but when it all comes together for him, those splash plays, that's just it's rare. He's got rare movement skills for a player of his size. I can't quit a guy like that. 3rd, 4th round, absolutely give me this dude and his unique athletic ability.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.